Hyperlight Drifter any percent on the current patch. I will try to update this as future patches come out and link to anything that I forgot or anything that changes. So I guess first, what do I mean when I say current patch? Well, if you look in the bottom right corner, you'll see the date that this patch came out, which is August 4th, 2016. So everything in this video, any trick, will work on this version or any version previously. The first version of the game, released on March 31st, and then the patch from April 31st, have some specific glitches that I will not be going over. So anyway, to start a speedrun, select New Game, obviously, clear a file, your name doesn't matter, and then time starts when you select your name and hit enter here. So this would be when I would start time. And I'm going to hold down pretty much every button on my Xbox controller. I'll go over what these combinations are on every controller. So on Xbox, it's A, X, B, Y, and both triggers, both left and right trigger. Hold that down and you'll skip the opening cutscene. If you're using a DualShock 4, it would be X, square, triangle, circle, and L2 and R2. If you're playing on keyboard and mouse, I believe it is just type /skip. Anyway, so time would begin now. I'm going to hold down all the buttons. I'm also going to hold down left bumper to use a medkit, which will make the drifter stand immediately. And then you can sometimes skip this cough with proper dashing. So something to note about the dash mechanic at the beginning is you kind of only get these 3 dashes and then you have to walk a short bit. Like I'm mashing in the dash button here, you can see I'm not constantly dashing. Anyway, what you want to do is dash down here and pick up this first medkit. And then keep going down here, and then ideally you're after 2 sets of 3 from that medkit, you'll be at this elevator. So try to get as close to the elevator as possible, if not on it. So immediately from the elevator, just hold right and dash a few times, use all 3, and then you notice that right here I'm able to get 4 dashes in quick succession. And that's because sometimes if you dash over a large gap like this, the game does not count as that is one of your 3 dashes, or some logic similar. So you can find some ways to kind of cheat the system a little. Anyway, continue down here, kill this guy. Try and kill him at max sword length. Dash over to this. I'm picking up that health kit as an extra just in case. Something to note about doors is that you can actually dash through them as soon as you see the rectangle fill up, like this. It saves a little bit of time. Pretty much any door you can do that on. The rest of this part pretty much is obvious if you've played this game before. Now, right here you need to kill the guy with the gun and this other Dirk. On the 60 frames per second patch, you need to kill all 3 of them. So coming up in this next screen, really let me go back. The tutorial is pretty much all optimized movement up until you get to this second screen here, or this next screen coming up. Anyway, I'm going to attempt a trick where I skipped the opening cutscene here. If I don't get it, I'll continue, and I'll just show you what the alternate bit route looks like. Okay, so after this dark circle here, or dark square in front of me here, right over where my gun is the trigger for the cutscene. So what I'm going to do is dash and then immediately use one of my health kits. And what this will do is it will allow me to dash again, and then I'll repeat that process. And you have to push the buttons in pretty quick succession. Okay, I didn't get it, so I'll just continue for now. I will link to a tutorial on this trick. Really, all this trick does for you is it gets you 2 extra bits early and gets you into town earlier. I'll go over some of the tricks that are used to get back into town once you skip the cutscene. What happens really is you end up in the monolith room in the north. and you pick up one of the bits, the little upgrade tokens in there, then you teleport back to town and then pick up the upgrade token right next to that teleporter. And that actually leaves you outside of your house, and this is important for a couple of reasons. One, you will not have the map, so you will need to somehow get back in and access the house so that you can pick up the map. Two, you need the teleporter, because we're going to teleport back to town a lot to save time on movement later on. Now, if you didn't know, you can push start to prevent the map from opening whenever it would normally open the map. In the speedrun, it opens the map after every pillar you raise, the first module you collect, I'll go over what all these are later, and anytime you activate a teleport pad. So, if I had been able to do that trick successfully, I would end up on the other side of this barrier, and trust me, there's an upgrade token and a teleporter pad over there. Anyway, so if I'd gotten that, what I would then do is proceed down here and go west. I would make sure to not walk too close to this pole right here, because that will activate a little cutscene and waste my time, which I obviously don't want. Anyway, continue over here, and what I'm going to do now is what we call in the community just a transition clip. So what I'm going to do is run back into the previous screen transition, and then I'm going to hold up left on my control stick at as close to a 45-degree angle as I can, and I'm just going to mash the dash button. And after I trigger this, I'll explain what's happening. Okay, so what I have done, I'm going to sit down just in case. So what I have done is I've dashed back onto the line where the drifter normally changes screens. However, as you can see, I haven't changed screens. For some reason, this allows us to go out of bounds on certain walls, and it's not really used in any other place in the speedrun. There is one other spot, but I'll get there later. Anyway, so I've held up left to kind of get to this point. Now I'm just going to kind of hold up right to dash into the wall and get out of bounds. There are many rules to out of bounds, so I'll just try to go over a few of them quickly. The most important is that this game will kill you instantly if you are out of bounds for 3 or more seconds, roughly. To counteract this, you can either fall, take damage, sit down by pushing down on the directional pad, or you can heal. So I'm sitting down right now, so the game will never kill me. Well, it'll take a long time. It actually takes about 7 minutes or something. Anyway, I'm going to dash just up a little bit, and then over to the right to get out here. Activate the teleport pad, and then go into the house. And then that is normally where I'd get the map if I had gotten the optimal route. However, since I already have the map, we can just proceed. So the first area we go to is actually the north. And there's several reasons for this. One is that it has one of the easiest routes for the upgrade tokens, the little gold coins that we call bits. And we need 12 of them. The other reason is that the only upgrade we actually purchase in the any percent route is the chain dash. And the chain dash saves a lot of time on movement, but it saves more time in the east-west, or the east and the west, than it does in the north. Because you can do a similar time-wise bit route in the east, we think, but because of how chain dash works, it just saves more time in the east, as far as we can tell. Anyway, to go north, you can obviously go around and go up the normal way, or you can do a door out of bounds right here. This door out of bounds is slightly special. It might take me a couple tries to get it, but what I'm going to do is open the door and walk a step into it, and then I'm going to hold right on my controller, just slightly upright, more right than up, if that makes sense. And then it's going to get me out of bounds, and I'm going to dash over to the screen transition. And that transition is really easy. You just kind of hold upright and go in a line, and you won't get stuck and you won't die as long as you just dash as soon as possible. Anyway, continue north. Dash as often as possible. I'm just mashing A. And try to make your way over to this box as fast as possible, and you can break it. So now you can either go back around up and over the left to the stairs, or some people like to do this. This can be faster, it is just a little trickier to do. This last dash is very particular. But either way, you need to get over here and kill these guys for this barrier to lower. So continue north. An important thing to note is that dashing is always faster than walking, except in a few specific situations. Kind of just use your best judgment, but generally you want to be mashing dash to do it as often as possible. So second bit on this route, since I didn't get the early two, are right here. And I'll go over every bit you would pick up, regardless of whether or not, or what route you get. And don't think you can't get a good time if you don't get that trick for skipping the opening cutscene. You can still get a really solid time without it. Anyway, right here is one of the first scripted coughs that we encounter, right past these stairs. And you can actually skip all of them by dashing over their trigger, or you can also use the dash, heal, and then dash again trick if you're good at it. I usually don't like to waste the health kits, so I'll try to either dash into it as far as possible, or even try to go over it. And just keep going north. There are no bits to collect in this room. Something you can do, like I just did there, is you can use the end of your dash to go off of a ledge. It's especially useful in this area. It's kind of tricky to do. Here's a spot that actually is much trickier than it seems, because in order to get over to this ledge, you have to kind of be as low as possible on this one. Otherwise, the game's auto aim can it just makes you fall right off. So I like to go down here, dash here, and then just dash down, right? Then no more bits to collect in this room either. Didn't collect any here in the first place, but you get the point. Dog cutscene, followed by drifter cutscene. Alright. So the next bit we acquire is up here. Keep in mind that if you do get the trick to skip the opening cutscene, you actually can skip this bit, because it takes a little while to get. Then we go up here and collect this bit. This is another one you will skip. Or you can skip anyway. Alright, so here's the first module of the game. So what's going to happen when I pick up this module, what I'm going to do, is after I start the little cutscene that plays, I'm going to push start to prevent the game from opening the map, and then I'm going to do a trick called select buffering. And what this uses is, for me, the back button on my Xbox controller. On PlayStation, it is, I believe, the share button. If you're playing on a PlayStation 4, it's actually just the touchpad. I am playing on PC, personally. So what I'm going to do is open the map, and then I'm going to hit dash and my map button at the same time, and that will allow me to move around during the module cutscene. From what we know on the 60 frames per second patch, which is the one after the August 4th, in order to do select buffering, you have to have the map open the entire time, and then you have to just kind of know where you're going, I believe, and dash through it. So it's a little trickier, but ideally it should look something like this on the older patches. And you just kind of get a rhythm for it, and it saves a little bit of time on each module that we do this on. And we don't do this on every module. There, just find a dash pattern that works for you for not getting hit. Ideally, if you're a beginner, you picked up a lot of health kits, so it won't really be a big deal. Just make sure that you have more than 2 health or even 4. Being at full health is advisable here because these birds deal 2 damage with their laser attack. So let me back up and explain combat here. So as you just saw, I did 2 damage at once to those enemies. And if you don't know how I did this, I fired my gun and then I immediately pushed the sword attack button. And what this does is it cancels your gunshot into a sword swing. And this works with any gun in the game. So in the case of the pistol, it allows me to deal 2 damage very quickly, and I can then chain sword attacks. You can also cancel your gunshots and sword swings with a dash, like this. So keep that in mind for moving in and out of combat quickly. And if you've never played Hyper Light Drifter before and you're wondering how to regenerate ammo, you do it by hitting enemies with your pistol. So, bonus bit you can get if you don't want to do the one in the next room, or for some reason you feel this one's faster. You can come over here and you can kill this bird in the top left and he will drop a bit for you. I'm not going to get that one, but I did want to show you that that one is pretty easy to get, in case you don't like one of the main ones in this room. So there's actually one down here, and this switch has to look like that in order for you to be able to use this elevator. So one of these birds has a bit. It is this one, top right. Using that pattern, you'll generally get through there without getting hit. That room can be very dangerous, so if you don't want to get that bit and just skip it and get a different one, you completely can. Okay. Coming up is the first instance of what I call an arena clip. And essentially what this uses is the barriers that pop up when you enter an arena. You can actually use them to get out of bounds because, as far as we can tell, we being the speedrun community, the pillars open up collision around them. Most of the doors in this game do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is walk kind of upright to about here, and then I'm just going to inch my way up until I start the cutscene that normally plays when you start this arena. And so then, right after that ends, I'm going to immediately push up and then down right as fast as I can. And what that's going to do is it's going to get me inside the wall, and I'm just going to dash down right 2 times more, which will get me into the room behind the 3 module door. Can be a little tricky. Anyhow, that room's pretty self-explanatory. Just kind of move through it as fast as possible. Here, I'm going to wait. One, because I want an autosave for this arena. I want to take a moment to explain that. The way autosaving works in this game is that every time you enter a room, activate a module, or a warp pad, the game will save. However, if you move too quickly past where the game normally saves, in this case the entrance to this room, the game will not autosave. Instead, it will put me back at the elevator to the previous room. Anyway, entering the arena, I'm gonna kill this guy first. Don't worry about taking a couple hits from that guy if you have health, just don't die. That one is important because he has a bit, for 1, and 2, I need it to die anyway so I can get out of here. I like to kill those guys first because their attack has a really long range and they can be unpredictable. Dash off that ledge just for good measure. So now I'm going to activate this module and then select buffer away from it. Again, that's just me opening the map and hitting the dash button at the same time. Really, as long as you have the map button or map screen open, you can kind of, I believe you can dash. It's just easier to do it that way on this particular version of the game because you can see where you're going. Anyway, the next boss is probably the most dangerous boss in the run, and also the most unpredictable. Pretty much every attack will deal 2 damage because the boss's attacks use those big squares that the larger burn enemies used against me. Those will deal 2 damage. Really the best advice I can give against this boss in particular is study its patterns and learn what its tells are. For example, I believe it will raise its staff whenever it's about to summon a new group of squares, and it can summon them in like a snake-like pattern that will kind of follow you in succeeding lines being horizontal or vertical with spaces in between, or it can summon a giant X or cross pattern. So let's get started. Again, if you want to wait at the start of the room for an autosave and proceed. So I like to wait a little bit for that one to go away, and then I try and play it very safe so I can keep health, and just take a few pot shots and sword swings to get a little bit of damage in. Above all, I just try to maintain a good amount of health so I don't die. It's completely random whether it chooses a cross or an X, by the way. So again, for this technique that we call plinking, all I'm doing is pushing my gun button, right trigger, and then hitting my sword attack button, which is X. I died because I was careless. Anyhow, let us proceed. Oh, these squares will also kill those little birds if they get trapped in the fun activation. Like that. So if you're comfortable, you can just kind of dodge around and wait for them to kill themselves, essentially. You can see why this boss is dangerous. There. So, we've killed the boss, and we are rewarded with 3 bits. And now we will only need 1 more. So activate this pillar. This is the only pillar cutscene in the run that we will watch. But basically, as soon as it's done, dash down here and then push start and leave the menu open for a moment so the map will not pop up. You have to watch that cutscene, unfortunately. Then come over to this module, activate it, and select buffer away. Again, you don't have to do select buffering, but if you want to go as fast as possible, I would recommend learning it. So here's a couple bits. One is down here. That's the one that I'm going to get. I'll show you where a couple other ones are in case you'd rather use these. There's one through this screen, right here. I'm going to go down here. Okay. There is another bit over here, which again you can get if you just desire to get this one over a different one. Might even be faster, who knows. Anyway, proceed past these enemies. Didn't need to heal, but you want to activate these barriers and make them go away. Now you can do an out of bounds here, or you can kill these enemies. If you kill some of these enemies, you will get a bit, in case you want one, but I'm going to try and do an out of bounds, again with the barrier that comes up. So what I'm going to do is walk up a little bit, and then hold down left and dash into the wall. Like that. So, this is the fourth module that I'm going to collect in this area. If you've played this game before, you know that after you activate the fourth module in an area, there's a cutscene that plays with the final boss. So, what I'm going to do is actually, as soon as I start activating this, open the map and then teleport back to town as quickly as possible. And this will skip the cutscene, and also teleport me back to town. But you have to do this very quickly, otherwise the game will play this very terrible sound the entire time it is open. The only way to get the sound to stop is to close your game and restart the program. Anyway, looks something like this. So now I'm teleporting back to town, and that is the north section of Hyper Light Drifter. I will be right back.